Hi, it's Heather from K2Z again, and we're talking about a solution that works for everyone, and it's based on Mickey Cashton's convergent facilitation, and this is just a quick and dirty introduction to it. There are loads of resources out there, and there's our own Facebook group where you can join. The link will be in the description. Go to the guide that says a solution that works for everyone. And in there, people can talk about examples at work, at home, in relationships, where they're trying to come up with a solution, trying to make a decision with other people, and they want to make sure that everyone gets heard and that there's buy-in at the end. So we can talk about that in the Facebook group. Also, you can go to the website, k2z.org, to book this as a workshop so that you can do it live with other people. And we spend a lot more time on examples, and you can bring your own examples too. Okay, so first we had the criteria. We made sure that everyone was in the room who needed to be. We made sure everyone was heard and that we understood what was important to each person. And there was no hierarchy in this list. Then we either as a group came up with some proposals for ways to meet all these criteria, or we put together a committee, or we put together many little groups to go look for proposals, or we broke up the proposals into different aspects like budget, location, etc. So you could be doing that for a family holiday. You could have someone look at location, someone look at how are we going to pay for it, because some of us make more money than others. And so what's a fair way to be able to make this holiday affordable for everyone? So people could be looking at that aspect. And then someone else could be looking at time of year, that kind of thing. So you can break it up. Okay, so let's move into the decision now. So people have come up with proposals. Maybe one group did, maybe lots of groups did, maybe each person thought about it and put forward proposals. So ahead of the time for the decision, you would likely be sharing these proposals, and each person could evaluate the proposal. So they would look at the criteria that we came up with in step 1, and then list each proposal. There could be 2 proposals, there could be 50 proposals. And each person will check to see if the criteria are met. So it could have been impossible to come up with a proposal that meets everything. So that's why you want to check. And so in this example, criteria 1, proposal 1 meets it, but proposal 2 doesn't, etc. So you're going through this list. And it might be that proposal 1 is meets more of the criteria. So you're going to make this decision as a group. It isn't you making the decision just based on numbers. If you've been going along with all these workshop videos, then you'll know that the white supremacy culture patterns include putting quantity over quality. And we don't want to just be looking at the numbers and saying, definitely, we're going to go with 1, no questions asked. We're not going to do that. So if it was as simple as there were only 2 proposals put forward, one of them meets more criteria than the other, then you could say, I propose that we go with proposal number 1. Is everyone willing to do that? If you say it like that, you are you're saving a lot of time, because what if everyone goes, yeah, it's fine. Let's go to Florida, and that's it. And you're done. Like, you don't need to make this last any longer than it needs to. And if they say, well, no, then that's a different matter. Now, you're not asking for their preference. If you asked each person for their preference, that's different. What we really care about, not preference, but willingness. So if you were trying to decide what pizza to order for your family tonight, and people said, well, I prefer mushrooms and extra cheese. And someone else, says, well, I prefer pepperoni. And the other person says, I prefer. You're going to slow everything down. What you want to say is, look, we need to eat. We need to order. We're hungry. Is everyone willing to have this one that has half this and half that? And we've already heard the reasons why the criteria were important to each person. We heard that in step 1. So we're keeping that in mind when the proposals were made. It likely is meeting lots of these criteria. And so by this time, people who might not have had all of their criteria included could very well be willing to go ahead, because they can see the process. They can see why it was difficult to find something that met all the criteria. So as a facilitator, you're going to be thinking about things like, how much time do we have left to make this decision? If it's a very important decision, if you particularly have a lot of power, you're the boss or the adult, if it has really long-term consequences, then you want to allow for a lot of time for the whole process. Because, even in the proposal stage and even in the decision stage right now, someone could remember an important criteria. By looking at the proposals, someone can realize, what, we left out something. We left out something that's important to me, or we left out something that's important to everybody. But in any case, it's important, and we need to include it, or we won't get that buy-in. So if it's such an important decision, you want to allow time to have to go back to step 1 to add more criteria, and then look for new proposals, or time for people to reach this decision. Now, if it's pizza and it's for dinner tonight and it's 7 o'clock and the kids need to go to bed, you don't have a lot of time. It's not a decision that has long-term consequences. Yes, you have power as a parent, but you also everyone needs to sleep. So what kind of question you ask is really important. So if you were to say, this is the proposal that we order this kind of pizza, is anyone else have a different kind of pizza that they would prefer? You're not going to ask that question. It's like opening a can of worms, right? It's allowing for everyone to go, yeah, but I wanted this. And then but we did the criteria, we've done the proposals. You want to be very careful with your questions. So if it's the pizza, that's when you might say, okay, is everyone willing to go along with this? Or you could say, would anyone refuse to eat this pizza if we ordered it? Like, you want to ask the crucial question. Would anyone quit their job if we moved our offices to Manchester? So if you're looking to save time, and you just want to know if anyone has serious problems with the proposal, then you ask that kind of high threshold question. So high threshold questions are looking for extremes. So would you quit your job? Would you not eat? Would you not go on holiday if we chose this? And so then you're dealing with that right away. Low threshold is, does anyone have any problem with this? Does anyone wish that we weren't having pizza? And opening it up to all kinds of things. Does anyone have any concern at all about the move to Manchester? So you're allowing for lots to come up. So if it's a big thing like moving from Birmingham to Manchester or London to Manchester, you want to hear it all. So even though they listed their criteria there, and maybe they were even part of a proposal, if someone comes up with, no, I'm not, I would quit my job if we went to Manchester, or just, I have a concern about the cost of housing there, and so let's check this out. Let's add it to the criteria. Let's check. Let's hear what everyone else thinks about that. Maybe you're feeling concerned for someone else, and so you want to hear the answer so that you're assured that everyone really does agree with this. Medium threshold questions. Does anyone have a proposal that they think is better than this one, that meets the criteria more? And so then you're kind of like seeing if people come up with other ideas. So threshold questions, really important. This is something that we can play with in the Facebook group or in a live workshop. Outliers, so important to hear from these people. Again, they're people who might have more confidence to speak up that other people haven't said. Things that they were thinking, but only this person has the confidence to say it. We want to hear these people no matter what kind of judgment we're making about them. Very important to include the outliers in this process. And so once again, we're listening. We want to listen to what people say. Your threshold question determines how much time you have to do this, how much flexibility. And if people feel heard, then they're more likely to go along with whatever decision has been made. And so this is crucial to the whole process. This is about us connecting with one another, being able to listen to one another. And this is why all the other work and the other videos and the other workshops is so important, because we need to be able to look at our biases, the things that stop us from hearing one another. And we need to have a really good grasp of power and how that can be playing out when big decisions are being made. So keeping that in mind, like noticing that the boss is saying something and people seem to be getting quiet. As a facilitator for this process, we get to be aware of tensions in the room. We get to be completely transparent about what we're doing so that everyone feels that they're part of this process. Again, so that we have buy-in and so that we get to hear everyone's perspective, because it's impossible for us to have such a wide perspective. We really need each other so that we get these decisions right. Now, I've used all kinds of examples that are from the mundane around pizza to slightly more complicated, like a family holiday vacation, to relocating a business. Brexit, of course, huge